as you come in, go to the chat and the drop-down menu, the two, and address it to panelists and attendees, and just say hi so we can know that you're in the room. Say hi and where you're joining from. It's always interesting to see where people are coming from. Hi, Jody from Illinois. Welcome. Tanya from Jacksonville, Florida. My parents, my mom lives in St. Augustine. Denise, hi from Maryland. Welcome. And Samantha. Hi, Samantha. Hi, Tammy. Hi, Sydney and Brenda. Great to see you. And we opened the door a little late today, so we're going to get started. It's 12 o'clock in just about 20 seconds, I think. And today's topic is art for everybody. And we're here with our resident art teacher, our resident artist at Be Strong Families, Tracy Kirchmann. And she's done a lot of webinars for us over this past year that have been really fun and engaging and encouraging to bring out the creativity in everyone, because this is Spiritual Vitality Week. And yesterday in our webinar with Ruben Mabubi, we emphasized that creativity is like a human birthright. It is who we are as people. So expressing that creativity is really important. And Tracy's going to help us do that. So welcome, Aunt Tracy.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am so happy to be back.
And I'm just going to go over the housekeeping, which is the ways to engage. The primary one, some of you have already started, which is with the chat. So you just address it to all panelists and attendees so that everybody can see what you're writing. And then you can do something, you can use that anytime for questions, for answers, for conversation, for whoa, yay, ow, ho, anything you want. And then if you want to talk and be heard, you can raise your hand. And then Andrew, who's in the background here, keep making everything go smoothly, will unmute you, you'll unmute yourself, and then you'll be able to talk. So now that that's out of the way, we also have agreements, and this is in recognition that we co-create this safe space together. All of us, each of us is responsible for ourselves and our energy and for creating the joy that this hour can bring us. So these are the agreements. If you can agree to these agreements, if you would just type, like Jody did, type I agree. Lawan did, Tammy, Denise, yes, we got agreement. Let's keep it rolling. Practice your agreement and your use of the chat. So this is Spiritual Vitality Week, and we're just emphasizing that spiritual vitality is feeling completely alive and full of energy. And when we do cafes, the questions in this domain focus on cultivating spiritual virtues and values such as creativity, hope, love, faith, courage, humility, and kindness. And that helps tune you into what nurtures your spirit. So that's this week, this whole week. And I think the next slide is, we're going to turn it over to Tracy. And I'm probably going to go to the background because Tracy runs her own show. I'll come back.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Kathy, and thank you, Andrew. I'm really excited to be here for Vitality Week again. And this week, we're going to be talking about art as a way to increase vitality in your own life. When Kathy first asked me to be a part of Vitality Week, I was thinking about this, and I thought about my first drawing teacher. And he described drawing as really the art of seeing, not as putting pencil or pen to paper, which I thought was really interesting. And, you know, now that I'm in my 40s and I've been a practicing artist and an art educator for years, I seem to understand that more and more, in the same way that I understand that all of us are inherently artists, just as Kathy was talking about, you know, creativity being part of who we are. And so today I'm going to talk about some tools that you guys can use and ways that you can use kind of the art of seeing in your life to bring more vitality to you. just like with all of our senses, it can be, I think because we use our sight and our vision, so practically every day, that it can be, easy to just for it to become invisible, for the things that we see around us. And but I want to really talk about using our vision to kind of cultivate visual expressions that like help us on our journey today. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is visual meditation. Has anybody ever done that? If you have, put it in the chat. But basically, I'm going to show you guys a Mandelbrot set, which is a Mandelbrot Zoom. And I'm going to screen share here. Hold on one second. Sorry, guys. One second. Sorry, Andrew, for some reason it's not coming up. Oh no. So, oh, that's not the right one either. One second. Here we go. So this is, there's lots of visual meditations that you can do. This is actually a mathematical set equation, a Mandelbrot fractal that continues on and on and on. So again, it's related to math. Some of you have done my previous webinars know that I try to find a lot of connections between math and art and science and art. And this is one of those inevitable connections. So we're going to just watch like a minute and a half of this, and you guys can find this online also. But this is an example of a visual meditation where you can actually use something visual instead of just listening to something, or as a visual person, I find that a lot of times I'll create images in my brain to go along with whatever I hear in an audio file or something like that. So, having a guided meditation visually can be a really great tool. Some people don't like it, so feel free, if this doesn't work for you, to just throw that away. But I thought we'd give it a try and just show you guys for a second. It's also really interesting just to explore this whole concept of a Mandelbrot fractal. All right, we'll stop there for now. So basically, we've talked before about the golden ratio, and the Mandelbrot theorem and fractals are examples of things in nature. It kind of brings me comfort because it's like order to the chaos, and I feel like a lot of times we feel overwhelmed in response to chaos, but we don't realize what's contributing to the chaos. So I think that visual chaos is a part of that, and that's some of the things that I'd like to unpack today. But I wanted to kind of start first with the order in the universe. I also wanted to talk to you guys about the golden ratio, because again, these are things in nature. And just like my teacher was talking about how drawing is really the art of seeing more than putting pencil to paper. You have to, to be able to replicate an apple, you have to be able to see the apple before you can draw it. And that sounds a little like mystical, Mr. Miyagi kind of thing, but it's really true. It's like I've altered the way that I'm able to see things in order to be able to transcribe those things into visual images. But I think, with our culture the way that it is, it's really easy to be overwhelmed by visual stimulus and images constantly with our phones and computers and screens. And you can find a lot of peace by using visual meditation, either, with something like the Mandelbrot Zoom online, or by, finding these representations of things in nature. And again, just like regular meditation or any sort of practice, it does take practice. So, being present and really creating a level of awareness around what you see is really important. We all know that when we're busy or preoccupied, we can't see the forest for the trees, and so, adding some mindfulness into your life regarding what you see and how you see it is really important. So staying on that same line of representations of visual harmony in nature, I've talked a lot in the past about the golden ratio in math and also in art. Does anyone have any questions so far? Did I lose everybody in the the Mandelbrot zone? That's actually really wonderful. And there's a bunch of different videos with of different Zooms that Mandelbrot Zooms people have created that you can find on YouTube. We have such a limited time here. I didn't want to take up any more time on that.
No, I've been watching the chat. People loved it and thought it was freaky cool and really liked it. I think, my experience with the Mandelbrot Zoom is also everybody should YouTube it themselves, because there was, at least on my side, there was some lag and some kind of clunkiness. It's very, what happens to me, I was going to do my dissertation specifically to prove this, but I can't. It's too much work to try to figure out what the study would be. So I'm doing a theoretical one instead. But what I feel happening to me when I go into the Mandelbrot Zoom has something to do with psychological flexibility, because what happens is you think you're going one place, your mind kind of tries to go towards the center, and then it takes you a different place, but it's okay. And then it opens up in that place, and then it goes a different place, and it's okay. So you keep having this experience of being on this journey, being drawn into the picture, and having your expectations be disrupted, but it being really beautiful anyway. At least that's my experience with the Mandelbrot Zoom when I do it. So, and I think that's really important, in terms of depression and anxiety. There's also psychological research that says that those things are related to rigidity. of mind and not, and so anything you can do, it's just like yoga for your body, like to make yourself more physically flexible. Anything you can do to kind of like make your mind more flexible and more adaptive, more able to take in what's happening and process it, will add to your peace and reduce anxiety and depression.
Exactly, I agree. And sometimes it's easier to, what I liked about the Mandelbrot Zoom was exactly that, was that visually it kind of like takes you on this journey. Because I'm such a visual person, it's easy for me to create my own images in my brain. And having a visual image to look at specifically really helps. So there's all kinds of visual meditations you can do. But I really
Mandala is an
encourage,
example, right, Tracy? Like
what was
Tibet,
that?
I mean, mandalas are an example.
Exactly.
Tibetans are really big on that. Like you can see these really complicated tungas, right? That
Right.
Tibetan, and you can Google that too, mandala, Tibetan, or even coloring books. The other thing is coloring books that are based on mandalas, so
Right.
that you can actually be creating the mandala, as you're, so it's just,
Or even just, a lot of like doodling. Like a lot of people don't think that doodling is a meditative practice, and it actually is. And it actually has, enhances your ability to understand things often.
yeah.
And
And Tanya,
the academy.
just to be clear, like I'm not saying that it's a caveat. I'm not saying that if someone is clinically depressed, that all they have to do is watch the Mandelbrot Zoom and everything will
Right.
be all better. Like, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying
Right.
there is a link between depression, and psychological rigidity, and anxiety and psychological rigidity, because and you can think about it with people that or if you've been depressed, sometimes it's hard to let go of the exact beliefs that are making you depressed. Do you know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
somebody can say, but that's your reality, and you're holding on because you're afraid if you don't hold on to that, like what will happen? So
Right.
I think the thing is whatever you can do, and this is why I talk so much about getting into a relaxed state, because when you're relaxed, you're more flexible too. When you're stressed, like part of rigidity, like you can think about if you're in a bad psychological state, it's almost the same as being clenched, like everything being clenched and rigid and stressed. And if whatever you can do to kind of like open it up, and
Right.
be more flow with life, is going to improve your mental state.
We're so used to being like berated with visual material also. It's like I totally agree. Starting from like relaxed places where you need to begin. Um, and we get so many messages all the time, we're not even really clear on, like, we don't even realize.
Right.
So the next thing
Dana, one more thing, Tracy, which is
okay.
Dana saying the labyrinth, and I'm glad you understood,
Yes.
Tanya. I just didn't want, it wasn't like, I just suddenly got worried that, oh, well, I heard on Be Strong Families, if you watch the Mandelbrot Zoom, you won't be depressed. I mean, I had an experience like that, a different experience, but Dana says the labyrinth at Marinjoy in Wheaton is great. And labyrinth is another example of a way to get yourself calm, a way to get yourself focused, a way to get yourself visually and kinesthetically with your body, engaged, so that you
Well, and what's
relax.
interesting about that point, Kathy, is that going back to the example that my teacher gave for drawing, we, because of the way our brains work, if I ask you to, draw this coffee mug, your brain is going to automatically put this kind of like platonic idea of a coffee mug in your head. And 90% of your mistakes will be from drawing the coffee mug in your head instead of the one that's in front of you, and
Well,
it's
how you experience a coffee mug, like
right.
struggling to get the three-dimensionality of it, like
Right.
and not knowing the tricks.
And it totally correlates with spirituality too, because it's like, instead of being present, a lot of times we're like focused on what's going to happen in the future or what happened in the past or what have you. And that's why, something like the labyrinth, that was a great point. Thank you, Dana. Or the Mandelbrot Zoom will help kind of like direct your focus visually and help you keep, keep yourself in your body and in that relaxed mental state. But I want to talk about my second point is talking about curating your visual input. We all have to be, our own curators right now. And I talk to my students about this a lot. Um, Obviously with social media and messaging and all of the different advertising and things that we're all getting, from our phones and our computers constantly, it's a complete onslaught that's never ending. And, we see how this affects children, in their self-esteem and things like that. But we don't often think about it as adults. And I think it's really important, a lot of us that are parents would not hesitate at all to talk to our children about, being careful about what they put in their bodies and their minds. And visually, it's really important, especially in the age of the internet. And I have another short little.
What happened? Tracy got booted off temporarily. Am I still there?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay,
She might
well,
have
I think it's really interesting while we're waiting for Tracy to rejoin. Those of you who were at yesterday's webinar, it sounds like what Tracy's getting into with being the curator of your visual input is similar to what Ruby was talking about yesterday with diet, like watching your diet and watching the material that you take in from your senses, including your vision, like what you see. And if it's paying attention to that, because if you're, I don't want to say you are what we take in, but it has a huge impact on your spiritual vitality. If you, what you're looking at, what you're touching, what you're smelling, and how to maximize the beauty and minimize the ugliness around you. And I guess what Tracy was talking about is especially in time of social media, and there's just a lot, we're always being bombarded with things. And so how do you kind of restrict the flow? And I know in various webinars, we've talked to people, a lot of you have talked about how you restrict the flow, like how you, many of you have stopped watching the news or stopped, we've gotten off of Facebook just because it's too much that you can't control. So I guess while we're waiting for Tracy to come back, I would ask you in the chat to put things in here, like with this idea of visual meditation or visual diet or visual like stimuli, like what do you want to be looking at? What do you want to be looking at? What helps when you look at it? What do you love to look at? And Samantha says, it's so interesting how the science of nature and mathematics intertwine with art and creativity. Dana says nature. Denise says sky. Yeah, Denise, it's so interesting about the sky, right? Because sometimes people in cities are like disconnected from nature. And I was always like, just look up. You can look up and the sky is always there and it's always different and it's always moving. And it's Mandelbrot Zoom, right? Just the sky. Sometimes it's stationary, but a lot of times it's moving. And that's a little meditation right there in itself. And nature offers so much. So water, a couple of you are saying water, the waves of the ocean, Tammy says. And you can actually, there are also YouTubes of the waves of the ocean, and you can watch the waves crashing and the rhythmic continuation of that. Trees, Colleen says. Yes, and trees are also, just so you know, I'm very into fractals because I'm doing my dissertation on fractals essentially, but trees are also fractal, like their structure is fractal. It's a branching structure. And it's self-similar. So if you look up what a fractal is, that fractals actually, there's research that says that the way that our brain, this is Richard Taylor, if anybody is interested, and he's done research on looking at fractals. He looked at like Jackson Pollock. I see Tracy's back, but I'm going to finish my thought.
No, please.
He's kind of proved that Jackson Pollock's paintings are the same fractal dimension as nature. And he's done research on stress reduction with just looking at fractals. So you don't have to even be in nature, you just look at it. And there's also research on healing and being in the hospital and looking at fractals accelerates the healing process. And they think that's because everything in nature is more fractal than Euclidean. When you think geometry, Euclidean geometry is like when you draw the sun as a circle or a tree as a triangle. And actually nature is fractal. Nature is like the trees behind me. It's self-similar regardless of scale. It replicates that way. And there's something about a resonance in the way that our brains are structured and how they work with fractals outside that really is important. Day and night, the sky is amazing. Yes, Heather says anything outdoors. Tracy, while you were booted off, I was asking people in terms of visual meditation or in terms of visual, like what kinds of things, curating their visual experience. Yesterday, Ruben Mabubi talked about diet being about what you take in and through your senses, including visually. So I was asking people what they like to look at, what calmed them down, what then made them feel peaceful.
Forest bathing. I love that, Dana.
Heather says anything outdoors, birds, trees, skies, mountains, water, anything really. And Andrew said lakes. I grew up on the shores of Lake Superior, so it's always very inspiring for me. Dana says a starry night. And Brenda, yeah, we're talking about the sky. You can find it anywhere, right? Tammy says she loves to watch the birds, and Dana says forest bathing. So there's my song and dance while waiting for you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, guys. My computer is not happy with me. So I think that directly aligns, though, Kathy, with what my next point was, which is, just like diet and exercise and everything else that we do for our health, we have to curate what we put into our minds and our souls and our hearts through our vision,
Yep.
And the three main points that I had here for that were, obviously we all know about social media and advertising and the impacts of that, like just like blue light can affect your sleep, having a bunch of like negative messages can really impact you visually and spiritually on that level. I think that like it's really important that people see the connections between even color, like color therapy is a real thing. It's not just some like hippie juju, there are certain colors that make us feel certain ways, and it's worth it to like look into those things. And also, like really listen to your body on this, like if you love a particular color and it makes you feel like full of energy and vibrant and alive, then go ahead and paint your office that color, it's, to me, I feel like I get licensed to do these things because I'm an artist, where like, if I wasn't, I feel like people who aren't artists feel like they don't get to do it as readily, and that's not true. We all, it's I think like to me like white walls make me like crawl the walls, grayish and beige are like not my friends, and colors make me feel great, so I incorporate that into how I dress and my environment around me. I try to create visually pleasing spaces in my home. And a lot of that for me is like also around like decluttering and having, you can't, this room behind me is totally cluttered because it's my office for school and it's my gallery of my children's art. But, even though it's cluttered, it makes me feel really happy because it's all love notes and rainbows and amazing things from my kids. So I think that creating a space that's visually appealing for you and listening to your body and yourself about visual things that inspire you is really important. And a lot of times we have to like tune into that. It's not something that's just going to be on the surface. It's like that's why what Kathy was talking about was so important too, with getting yourself into a place of relaxation where you can actually pay attention to yourself and your body. So I wanted just to show a really quick clip about advertising.
While you're doing that, Tracy, I was with the color, everybody knows I just moved, right? And so when I was thinking about when I was painting my house before I moved in, like the painters were really surprised because everywhere they go, literally everywhere they go, everyone is choosing one color for their house. Like every wall in their house is one color. And I was aware of that because I didn't think of myself. I lived in an apartment, so I never really had the option. I was really nervous about like, how do I know if I can make it look good, So I found like Modern Farmhouse. Well, that's black and white. So I did part of it black and white, but I couldn't stop myself from like in my room that I thought was going to be I said, I want to have a wall that's cayenne. I want to have a wall that's like light yellow. I want to have a wall that's like deep blue, and they go together. And then I found tile, like Talavera tile from Mexico, that brings all those colors together, and it makes me just joyful to be in that space. It like nurtures a part of my spirit. So I think when I ask about like, why do people do that, why do they only paint their house like all one color, I was told that it's kind of like they think that's what they're supposed to do. It's kind of like everybody else is doing that. And like if you go online and you look at like you're looking at houses to buy, right? They all, to sell it, you have to make it like very neutral so that everybody. But isn't it sad that people are like buying their house and then painting it to sell it
Right.
instead of painting it to live in it,
Yeah.
painting it to enjoy it, right?
Yeah, and I'd rather see them paint it whatever colors they actually enjoy and then paint it over, whenever they sell it. But people don't think like that. And it's like we're all kind of like trained to do things that way. And it's like, who cares if somebody else doesn't like cayenne or turquoise or yellow or whatever? It's like, it's your space.
Yeah. So people are saying my house is, Heather says her house is all different colors and she loves it. Dana says fluid simulation is an excellent app to give you stimulation, but seriously zen at the same time. And she put the link in there. And Tammy says, I've always been in apartments too. I imagine I'd be paralyzed by all the choices and end up going neutral. LOL. And then Dana says, yes, paint when you move in. Yeah, make it yours. Make it yours. And that whole thing, like, it's so interesting. Like when you say, if you have a color that makes you feel great, like paint your office that color. And I remember my grandmother had everything yellow, like everything yellow. We had a dining room table, like she had one that was painted yellow, every, like the glider on the front porch, yellow. And it's like, yeah, and when I asked why, yellow made her happy. Right. Yellow is third chakra. Yellow is power, will. Yellow is sunshine, and it made her feel good. Brenda says, "I just painted a Harry Potter under the stars space. It makes me so happy." Yay! And one time I painted, like when I was young, I moved in. I painted the floor deep blue and put silver stars on it. Like I painted silver stars on it because I thought it would be cool if my bedroom, I mean, I was a kid, and I was living in a cooperative house, but I thought it would be cool if my bed was in the night sky, That's awesome. So I don't know. I think be creative with it. Like that's what's going to give your spirit joy. Do you have the video you wanted to show?
Yes, this is just a short one on color therapy.
Oh, awesome. Not seeing it. Are you playing it?
Oh, it's not sharing? Hold on.
No. I think we should have had Andrew doing this.
Yeah, I've never done it this way, but I'm not doing it as well as I should have just thrown it all into a
Put
PowerPoint.
the link in the chat and maybe Andrew can
Yeah, I'll put the link in there. But, there's so many resources for all this stuff that you guys can find online. And obviously you guys are also giving great, feedback of your own too. But, I think that my last point was, you can really use visual art and, your powers of observation to achieve your goals. And we all know, that like things like vision boarding can help us create goals in a way and achieve our goals in a way that's different than just like making a list, right? When sometimes we see images of things that resonate with us and we don't even realize exactly why it resonates. It takes some further like meditation and contemplation to
you can put the link in the chat.
Okay.
Because then Andrew can share it. Sorry. And while you're doing that, Dana says, I made my daughter's room into an outside garden with giant flower blossoms and bees made from tissue paper and picket fence on the walls and a sky with clouds for the ceiling. How awesome is that?
That sounds amazing.
And Andrew says, I don't see the link yet. Once you post it in the chat, I can screen share.
I lost it. I'm trying to find it again. It closed out all the links that I had open for.
When your computer died?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we will all search. I know I'm curious now about color therapy, and I know we'll search afterwards.
And they have also videos online that you can do that, are similar to the Mandelbrot one, where it's like, walls of color where you can, and this might be helpful for some of you that are trying to figure out like how different colors do make you feel. If you've only lived in like, white or gray or beige spaces, and you're trying to like take that plunge into like making your space more personal for you, it might take a minute for you to figure out what makes you feel a certain way. So there's other resources online for that too, where here's one that's like a 10-minute color wash in each color that you can use to, see how your body responds to these colors.
Oh, let's see this. This looks great.
All right, starting the video now.
Color therapy. Now, it might sound like a new age waste of time that's just here to suck the green out of your wallet, but Tracy Kirchmann says maybe not. The science of color is on the breakdown.
The human eye can see 7 million colors. Some are irritants, some are stimulants, some provoke neurological responses so powerful that we're only beginning to understand them. We don't just see color, we feel it. New research shows us color may bring relief to millions suffering from pain. Dr. Mohab Ibrahim of the University of Arizona has shown that concentrated green LED light can ease chronic pain.
By about maybe 40 to 50%.
That sounds like a lot.
Well,
It's promising.
it's promising. We have some ideas of how it might be working. All of us have molecules or chemicals in our body that actually can control pain. Enkephalins is one of them, but what green light has shown is that it significantly increased the levels of enkephalins. What we would like to see is reduction in both pain and the need for pain medication.
In the meantime, what can somebody do to harness the power of green?
Enjoy life. Go out, go walk in a park, walk with a friend. Just stay tuned.
Next up, clearing up your skin with color.
If your acne has seen it all, it's time to see what light can do.
Beauty company Neutrogena says their LED therapy light mask is backed up by years of research with dermatologists.
Its blue light penetrates just beneath skin surface to kill acne-causing bacteria.
I would say, based on the research that I have read and the clinical trials that were conducted, I would say it has a significant effect.
It retails for about $35. And finally, the pacifying power of pink, or specifically a shade called Baker Miller Pink, which corrections officials use to mellow aggressive prisoners.
Putting them in this drunk tank pink colored cell for 15 minutes, they argued, completely pacified them.
The science of color on the breakdown.
That's amazing. I didn't know any of that. That's amazing. You're muted, Tracy. We can't hear you.
There's tons of great information. That was just a super short one, but it's the connections between, science and color are undeniable. And it's not just, it's not just about tie-dye anymore. So there's lots of empirical evidence to back all this stuff up. But I think that, beyond, thinking about like color, that aspect of like decluttering your visual space is also really important. If we have too many things in our house, or like to be able to find what we need, it's like important to, like, for me, I feel, and probably for other people also, to make it so that I have things on display that entice me visually and remind me of certain things. Very similar to like setting up an altar or something like that. I like to like approach my whole house like that. And of course, I've got dirty laundry and dirty dishes and everything like that too. But I think like visual decluttering is also really important. Having things, for me, I notice that when I have things decluttered, I feel like a sense of calm and peace. And it's on a visual level, but it's also on like a spiritual and like psychological level. It helps me, I don't know if other people have that experience. I know plenty of other people that like can live in complete chaos. And it doesn't, that's their happy space. So it's like, we're all different, but I think tuning into that is really important. And I think right now, with all of us paying attention to social media and things like that all the time, it's really easy to clutter your headspace with images that aren't necessarily like helpful or helpful to our goals, and that's why, using visual representations of things like vision boarding and using visual art can be a really positive way to work towards achieving those goals consciously and unconsciously. There's tons of great videos online about vision boarding and how you can do that effectively. But, the most important part, I feel like, is that you're really tuning into imagery. And a lot of times that'll tell you more on a conscious and subconscious level than, having to actually find images that represent like what you want in a future relationship, or an image that to you represents like the type of individual spiritual peace you'd like to cultivate in your life. Just like the old saying, an image can be a photo can be 1,000 words, or an image can be 1,000 words. It's like, we respond differently to images than we do to words. So you can find images that have this like profound impact on you and incorporate that into a vision board or into visual journaling. That's like what I like to do is do visual journals where like I'm tearing things out of books and magazines, images online, putting them into a journal. And I don't even necessarily like know what those connections are until looking back through it, and I kind of like put those things together. It's kind of like doing in art, there's a thing called an exquisite corpse, where like Kathy would start a drawing and only leave like a quarter of the drawing exposed to me, and then I would take that quarter of exposure and draw from that drawing, and then cover it up and only leave in the next quarter for like Dana to see, and then at the end we'd do this whole reveal where all of us would have a part of the drawing, but we're only responding to a limited amount of information. And I feel like in a lot of ways that's how our brains work. So, but you can use visual information, just as astutely as you can any other type of input, whether it's sensory or otherwise. And I think we just need to be more, vigilant about curating. And I'm calling it curating like in a museum, because that's like what we all need to do with our brains. We've got like more information than we can possibly ever, contain. And we have to like really work on like visually even what we put into our psyche.
So Dana says thoughts on Feng Shui. She likes the water, fire, earth, etc. at the elements aspects of it. And I would say my thoughts on Feng Shui, and there's another one in Vashti, I think it's called, in India, Indian Hindu philosophy, yogic philosophy, where there are sciences. I mean, I feel like it's based on cultural, a huge cultural body of knowledge about how things go together and how to create visual harmony. And I think harmony is another word, like in terms of curating your visual experience so that there's harmony. So that, you think about it when you look in the mirror, like if you want your space and where you are to mirror how you are. So if you put peaceful images in front of you, that's going to accentuate the peace inside you. And we have everything inside us. It's just the question is, what do we want to bring out? Denise says she functions better in a clear and clutter-free space. And then what I was suggesting, as you were talking about journaling, Tracy, there's an app called Day One, which is a journal app. And you can, of course, use it. You can write stories, put words, but you can also just put pictures in. Like you take photographs of the day, during the course of the day. And I started really, I'm doing it every day as kind of a discipline. And I've started like just putting a couple photos in, like the photos I took that day to remind me what was going on.
Right.
But it's also just, then when I look back at it, I have the memory of what that was, why that was. So,
and that's like the magic of like the Facebook memories, everybody loves that for the same reason, because it's like, like these pictures pop up from the past that you probably wouldn't even think of, but it's like when you're keeping those images in a centrally located place for yourself off of social media, I feel like it's even more powerful. But I think that, it's like all these things are just like tools, and it's so easy because we take so much in to kind of like deregulate what we're putting in our bodies. It's so easy to get like caught up in keeping up with Kardashians or whatever, and that's not even necessarily like what I'm really interested in real life, but we get like this onslaught of things, and then it's like other things are embedded in that stuff that we can choose whether or not to let that in. But it's like, I think that it's just like, cultivating beauty around yourself and in your life is so important. And it's something that we don't really do for ourselves very often. I feel like we're far more likely to, bring somebody else flowers than we are to, get flowers for ourselves at the market to bring home, just to have something beautiful and alive in your house. Or, I just think that it's really important that we do these things for ourselves. And I think it's kind of gotten lost. Like Kathy was saying with the example of her grandma, she like made everything yellow because that was her thing. And I think that as we've become like, more transient, and even just like there's a lot of economic factors too, like living in apartments, you have limitations on some levels, but then there's also all these great, hacks for that, with like vinyl wall coverings, or even, I discovered like chalkboard vinyl wall stuff covering for my classroom here at the house. And I like use that stuff for everything now because it's just great.
What is it?
It's just like a roll of like vinyl with sticky on the back, and it's chalkboard on the front. So you can, make anything have a chalkboard surface basically, so you can write on anything. And I do it, of course, for the kids, for the classroom on different parts of the walls, and so that they can draw, but you can also just like put a slice of it on a notebook and
Does
erase
it come off clean, Tammy asks? Can you take it off at the end?
It's just like it's like contact paper.
Yeah.
And the stuff that they make for it's even easier. It comes off even easier than contact paper, because it's just like that, like those wall decals they have that everybody puts up in apartments now, where it's like, you can get them made for anything. And why not? Because it's like, it is important what we see around us, and it doesn't have to just be what we happen upon. It can be what we create and what we build in our own lives to inspire us. And that's obviously going to move us towards our goals.
And so I think that that's also the style piece, the personal style, that you can treat your house or your apartment as an art project. You
Right.
can express your creativity and your personality and communicate with it. I talked to a man, I always forget, in California, who made it a point to always be dressed, in bright colors. And his thing was, he wanted to bring the party. Like, he wanted, whenever he showed up, for people to have a party, to like
Right.
visually, like he looked at his whole body as a canvas, and his clothing as a way to communicate happiness and uplifting, so he dresses in really bright colors. And I feel like a lot of us, have a personal style that, I remember I used to be wearing all black, and a number of my kind of spiritual advisors were like, you have to dress in color. You have to have color. You have to have more color, because it's like it's sucking you into that vibe. And it's not that there's anything wrong with that, but that, like, and they were correct that when I mix it up or when I have color, it makes me feel different. So I wonder how people think about themselves as an art project, and your personal style, what you want to communicate to people with your personal style. It's a different way of thinking about it than just, dressing for work or dressing professionally or being acceptable, or whatever. It's like, yes, Denise says wearing bright colors is a great way to brighten the world. But when you think about how you're dressing and curating what you're dressing so that it affects what other people may see, what do you think about? Like, what do you do?
My grandma used to always say, like, her motto was feel bad, look good. And she always thought that, like, something could, like, all of the world's woes could be cured with like a really great outfit, like no matter what happened in my life or anyone else's life, like it can be cured with like a trip to Macy's. And on some level, we've all experienced that kind of retail therapy, but like, I also think there's something to it on a spiritual level, like Kathy's saying. It's like, and we feel the same way about like I know I feel the same way about like certain pieces of jewelry. Feel like, I have things that people have given me that like when I wear it, I feel like different than I do if I'm just wearing something, that doesn't mean anything. And we can
like I have scarves that I bought on my travels or whatever. And so
Right.
when I wear a scarf that I bought in India, and I know I'm privileged to have traveled to a lot of places, but when I wrap myself in a scarf that I bought in India or I bought in Spain, like it brings the memories of the trip with me. and it's and the energy of the trip, you know, and the energy of that. And so I think that there are things that we wear. Some people might wear a hat, you know, bright colors, yes, but it's not just bright colors. It's also, you know, unique designs. Like when people are dressing in culturally, you know, cultural garb, you know,
Exactly.
and you're communicating to the world, but you're also communicating to yourself, like what vibe you want to be putting out there, you know. Colorful saris, Dana says. Yes, but you, how are you dressing to communicate? I mean, my mom came last week, and I've been buying her things because there's a place, www.harempants.com. Does anybody know them?
Nope.
Harem pants, okay? They're very comfortable. They're elastic waistband. They're brightly colored. They're cotton, and they're from Thailand, I believe, and they're really cheap. They're like $25, you know, or 20. They're not expensive. And they're really comfortable. And my mom, I got them for my mom because I knew that she's 81 years old. She looks great rocking her harem pants. Her harem pants, and then she'll wear it with like a button down blouse, you know, that's more, you know. She came and she was wearing like black tights, purple sneakers, and a purple t-shirt, you know. So and a black blouse over it, so that she has the pop of color, you know, the pop of color to be able to. And I'm like, wow, she's 81 years old. She looks so cute. She looks so cute. She looks so spunky, and it's part of her personality. So it's like, how are you dressing so that you are putting out energy that you want your life to be, you know?
I totally agree. And, you know, a lot of it goes back to, you know, when you think about, you know, some of my teachers have said the same thing about, you know, like everybody gets all dressed up for like different like ceremonies and things, but like bringing that ceremony, you know, even in what we wear and how we, you know, take care of ourselves, or, you know, even with like Kathy knows I'm obsessed with like certain smells. Like I like always smell like the same thing because I can't like operate without amber paste. And it's like, that's like a part of my jam. Like if I don't, it's not a visual thing, but it's like something I do for myself. It's like, you know, like I like anoint myself with oil, you know, it's like, and I feel like wearing scarves or different colors or jewelry and like incorporating that kind of like making like dressing a spiritual practice also, and helping you, you know, Tamara said, fake it till you make it. And that's like the same thing. It's like, especially if you're not feeling yourself that day, it can, you know, if you put on like a brightly colored ensemble with some like jewelry that like really makes you feel like a powerhouse, I bet you dollars to donuts, you'll probably feel great, you know? So I think
Thank you so much, Tracy. Thank you so much. We're kind of running to the end of the webinar, but I just wanted to thank you so much for coming. Thank you for sharing. I know it was like a bumpy ride with your technology, so I just wanted to.
No, thank you guys for your patience.
And then Andrew, so tell us what you do to make yourself feel great spiritually with your dress, your place, your whatever you do to bring color into your life. And then what's the next slide, Andrew? Because I want to make sure we're tomorrow. Oh, join Alexandra. It's only 30 minutes. It's a conversation about the role of ancestors in spiritual vitality. And then on Friday is a spiritual vitality cafe. And next week, we're focusing on financial vitality. So I'll ground us on Monday. We'll talk about what financial vitality means to each one of us, and then Guy's going to do small steps to big dreams. And then Alex and Robin will be back with children and financial vitality. And next week, it's all 30-minute webinars, check-ins. opportunities just to keep ourselves on track. So happy to have you all here as part of the Be Strong Families community, working on our journey to vitality this spring. And see you next time.